This is episode 71 of the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. I'm Carly Kade, and today Susan Friedland is returning to the show. Susan is a middle grade school teacher by day and a horse girl 24/7. The displaced Midwesterner who lives in Southern California blogs about real horse life on her blog Saddle Seeks Horse, featuring alfalfa scraps in her handbag, always dusty riding boots, and product reviews for equestrians. Susan is the author of 3 books, and her writing has been featured in Horse Illustrated, Sidelines, Horse Nation, and Equitrucking. Trot along with Susan in her handsome thoroughbred night at saddleseekshorse.com and Saddle Seeks Horse on Facebook and Instagram. Susan is returning to the show today to take us on a deep dive into what it's like to be a successful blogger. Now, let's get into the interview. Welcome to the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast, a podcast featuring interviews with equestrian authors who love all things horses and writing about them. In each episode, you'll hear inspirational stories from horsebook authors, including writing advice and marketing tips to help you write your very own horsebook. If you're an author, aspire to be an author, or simply love horsebooks, then you are in the right place. I'm your host, Carly Kade, and creative writing makes my spurs jingle. Hi everyone, welcome to the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. I'm Carly Kade, and today I'm so excited to have my friend and fellow author, Susan Friedland, back on the show. Welcome, Susan.
Hi, Carly. It's always really fun to see you and talk to you about all the things, horses and books and business. I'm excited.
Me too. The best topics on earth, right? And today, Susan's come back on the show to talk to us about blogging. We're going to take a deep dive into the world of blogging and how that can help authors get the word out about their books and reach readers. But before we jump into the world of blogging, Susan, since we've last talked, how are things going? Like, have you had any new adventures with Night? I know you were exploring fox hunting the last time you were on the show.
Yes. My most recent fox hunting adventure actually wasn't with Night. I don't know if people know this, if they're not fox hunters, but one of the cool things about it is if you're a member of your local fox hunt, that kind of opens doors for you if you were to travel to go ride with other hunts if they have horses available. So I was recently visiting my family in Illinois and had a chance to ride with one of the fox hunts there. And it's just always great to meet fellow horse crazy people and, kind of reconnect. It's from the area where I grew up, but, the people were, I was going to say strangers to me, but they weren't strangers. They were familiar because they were also horse people. And so it was really neat.
Before we get even closer to talking blogging, you, since you've been on the show, have a new book out called Strands of Hope. Can you talk to us about your new book?
We'll do some show and tell. Strands of Hope. Well, it's kind of a sad book. It's about how you grieve if you've lost a horse. I debated whether or not I should even bring it to the world because I don't want to be known as the horse grief lady and what a downer, but it's such a universal experience. I know not everyone has had a horse pass away because some people, they're very into showing and they're, upgrading and that sort of thing. But I don't know. It just seemed like there was a need and it was born out of a blog post. And so I did publish it and I've gotten some responses from people that are just, it's very touching to know that me as a stranger far away from wherever they are can help them feel a little bit less alone and a little more hopeful. Last week, someone connected with me on Instagram and she had a horse that looked almost identical. She said, my horse reminded me of Night. They look so similar and very young horse, colicked, and that was that. So I sent her the book because I was like, this is just so tragic. And so she messaged me back and, I'm going to go look at a Mustang. I think it might be too soon. And I, said, you'll know when you see that horse. Mm-hmm. So it's a neat way to be able to connect. I kind of feel like a big sister Like I've gone through this and it totally sucks, but there are other people who understand that pain and you're not silly and for feeling so devastated over an animal.
Oh, they're like our best friends. But I will say, you were so kind and generous to send me a copy of your book, and I read it. And at first, and I actually said this in the review that I left for it on Amazon, I was a little nervous, right? Because this is a topic that, is very, very difficult. Like thinking of losing your heart horse is hard. And I was nervous, but I read it, and you did such a fabulous job handling this topic. It was not sad. It was totally engaging. You shared stories of other people that have gone through this. You shared your own. You shared some ways in which you can manage it. And I actually feel like I'm more prepared having read this book for if something should happen, fingers crossed, to my heart horse. And I think it's a wonderful gift that you provided writing this book for horse owners, because there's nothing else like that out there, and how to be with this, because they are so important to us. So I think you did an amazing job with this subject.
Thank you. That really means a lot.
I would recommend anyone who's a horse lover to pick up a copy of this, whether you're in that position or not. And it's tough. It's not easy. So the blog post that inspired this, talk to us a little bit about how that went from blog post subject to book, because this is kind of the start of talking about blogging, because blogging can be a medium for like maybe test driving content to see what people respond to, that then you can think about expanding into subject matter for a book if you're blogging and you're an author. Would you talk a little bit about why you decided to take that blog post to a book?
Yeah. So I love what you just said, Carly, about test driving. And I've never really thought of it that way. And that's perfect. I'm going to write that down. So yeah, a blog post is like test driving. So what happened years ago, I was really active on Twitter with Twitter chats. And I don't know, there's probably still Twitter chats, but it's really cool because it's a way to communicate. It was called Horse Hour. I don't know if they're still doing it, but you can be basically on Twitter at the same time with other horse lovers all around the globe talking about a topic. And one week, the topic they had was about losing a horse. There was a gal in the UK that just was devastated. And it was not a recent loss. I think she had lost the horse a while ago, but she just had a lot of guilt. Just it was very deep pain for her. And, I'm not a psychologist or anything, but again, that kind of big sister, like, well, I know that deep pain because I lived that. Gosh, I don't want to write about that. But if I could bring something to life on my website and she reads it, maybe feels better for a few minutes, then that'll be worth it. So I did, people like lists. So I believe the title of the blog post is How to Grieve the Loss of a Horse in 10 Not So Easy Steps. It's, it's terrible. It's not easy. Like that's an understatement of the year. So I just wrote really like what I did. And in my situation, horse was completely healthy and then he was not. And then you have to make this decision. And so, it's so stunning and shocking. And you're like, I think they say denial or whatever. I wasn't in denial, but it's just like, whoa, like the whole paradigm of who I am has shifted. I don't have a horse anymore. What do I do with that? How do I sit with that? So it was kind of me entering that moment in time and that day and the weeks after, and then just chronicling it and then drawing out of that, like some of these steps that I went through. So over time, this is like 5 years ago, I think, that blog post just continues to get a lot of traffic. I haven't checked it lately, but there was a point where if you typed in, I think it was, grieving a horse or how to grieve a horse, it was coming in top page of Google search. So yeah, I just kind of saw that and thought, maybe I should write a book.
So your blog post reached when people are searching this term, the first page of Google, which is not an easy feat. So that sparked you to write this book.
I had written, my first book, Horses, Door to Men and Dirt, and that took me years and years to do. And it's really straight from the heart and a lot of embarrassing things and all that. That was an arduous process, but then this went a little faster. I'm not really a fast writer, but it was like I already had the outline, the 10 easy steps. So I was able to kind of, flesh them out more into chapters. And it was very important for me too that the book not be a long book, because who wants to sit there and read a 300-page book about such a sad topic? I tried to keep it brief and very practical. So that's how it came to life. And then I thought, I really want to expand this beyond me, because people will relate to my story, but there's so many other stories out there. I had owned my horse 16 years. There are people who've had ponies for 30 years. How do you deal with that? I had a friend who got that terrible phone call. Her horse was standing on 3 legs in the pasture. We need you to come down here now. The vet's here. So there's different types of end of life for our horses.
Yeah, it was really well done. And I like that you shared stories from other equestrians in different situations. There's the loss of the childhood pony. There's the loss of a horse through injury. There's the loss of a dream and a career that you were hoping that this horse could take, and they can't. So you explore a lot of different avenues, and you did a really great job with this book. And everyone listening, this stemmed from a blog post. She had the outline, she had the backbone, she tested it. She knew there were people that were interested in this particular topic, which then led her to write a book. So Susan is the equestrian behind Saddle Seek's Horse, which is a very, very popular equestrian blog, and you've been at it for a while. And Susan talks all about the beginnings of Saddle Seek's Horse in her earlier episode with me, which I'll link to in the show notes. But today, you are sharing with us insights into blogging best practices and how a blog can work well for you. And then again, and we're going to talk about a few things to avoid. So before we jump into the nitty-gritty, would you share with listeners quickly what you cover on your blog and what inspired you to start blogging? And then we'll move into the deep dive.
Sure. So my blog really, as many blogs do, started out as a journal. So in the early days, circa 2013, I had lost my horse and I was in the process of getting ready to start horse shopping again. So I was journaling about this. And then as it developed, it was, once I found my horse, then it was okay, here's what we're learning in our lessons. There had been a lot of innovation in equestrian gear and apparel in the time that I had kind of been away from horses. So then it was well, what kind of boots do I get now? What kind of helmet? So it just kind of evolved from being more personal about me and my experiences. And then it started well, okay, what's something that I'm trying to figure out that can help other people? It skews more English related, but I think just anyone who's kind of I don't want to say do-it-yourself horsewoman, because I don't have my horse in my backyard, but it's called, the equestrian blog for the everyday equestrian. So, I'm not a fancy person who has people for all the jobs. I'm me. Sadly, I don't get to ride every day because my horse lives far away, but I'm trying to be the best horse owner I can and maximize my time, which is a precious commodity for us all. It's lifestyle. If you say it's a lifestyle blog, then you can really blog about anything and it works. Okay. So it's a lifestyle blog.
Yeah. And I love your blog because I feel like it serves you as well as it serves your readers, because you're sort of investigating things that are interesting to you. It started out this investigation, and then it kind of grew as the blog grew in popularity. Which sort of leads me to my next question. Why would you suggest that an author consider starting a blog? Because some authors don't. Some authors might want to. I have one, you have one. What would be your recommendation to an author who is considering starting a blog?
Oh, discoverability for sure. Discoverability, opportunities to network with other bloggers. I just think having that presence puts you on the radar. And I know you're really good about selling your own books on your site. That's, I don't have exact stats, but I know that your profit margins are higher if you're selling directly as opposed to having a middleman, whomever the middleman or middlewoman is. So yeah, the blog is slash website, if we could kind of use that interchangeably, I think is really important for all authors.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, having at least a website presence under your name is usually the best way, is important for discoverability. But blogging uh, about a particular subject of interest to you or relatable to your book is another way. Like, for example, Susan, you get an idea for a book from a blog post that you wrote, but people are also discovering your book, which is an expansion of that blog post. So it works hand in hand to figure out what you might want to write about, explore topics you're interested in, but then also drive people to your website in order to purchase your book. So it sort of works 360 and backwards. It's like a interesting web to bring people to you. Now, if an author doesn't have a blog and wants to start one, what are some things that they should consider before starting the blog? Consistency is very important. Yeah. Knowing search terms and keywords and how to use that best, some SEO best practices, I imagine. What are some things that they should consider before saying, I'm going to start a blog?
Like, don't be afraid of the technology, because I'm not a tech person at all. And if I can learn how to use WordPress, self-hosted, anyone can, like, for real. And I would say, like, simple is great. You can pick a theme, get your hosting. It does not have to be fancy, but like it should be modern. I see some writers have what look like kind of older websites that are not connected into their social media platforms. And that's the other thing too, is I actually had my blog. Initially it was my name, but then I changed it to be Saddle Seeks Horse because that started becoming more known. I thought, yeah, people are going to know about that blog. They're going to remember that more than they're going to remember Susan Friedland. So it, depending on like where each person's at in his or her journey, like it might be better to do, like, you have your name is very clearly part of your brand. I don't know if I answered your question or went off on a tangent there.
Well, actually, this is a great topic, and you have. It's like, what are some things authors should consider before starting a blog? So that is an interesting conversation, because Saddle Seeks Horse was a blog and a brand and an influencer in and of itself while you were writing a book. So people started to know that before you were an author of your book, even though they partnered. So. What I've noticed, and this is a great conversation, what I've noticed is a lot of authors that have the influencer brands and then their books start gaining in popularity, they actually start like a secondary website under their name that just hosts information about the books but drives back to the original blogging site. So that's another way you can consider these things. It sort of depends where you start out and what the goal is. What's so interesting is I knew you before we actually met each other as Saddle Seeks Horse. I just thought Saddle Seeks Horse. It's interesting. But now that you have books and you're selling them in tack shops and you're going to speaking engagements and you're doing things around the books, people are going to start knowing you because you're the author of books, right? So they are going to type in Susan Friedland books. So it's two different ways to look at it that drive traffic to kind of the same source.
As far as like, if someone is not blogging and they want to start blogging, make sure that you can get the social media channels in that same name, because I had different ones when I'm not really that active on Twitter anymore, but I had a different one for Twitter, different one for Pinterest, so it would be great at the start to just have it be consistent across your website, Instagram, Facebook, and maybe it's not for everyone, because honestly, like social media, I'm having this very difficult relationship with it right now, but I really think, email marketing is the way to go. We can talk about that later.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you on the email marketing, which we can talk about in a second. And that's a great point, because there's a few things about checking that the social media handles are available one, you're doing your research to make sure that no one else out there is using the name that you're using, and you might be infringing on someone's rights, right? Whether they're a publication or something else, but it actually may influence how you want to name your blog. So it's and you want your account to be pretty much mirrored all the way across so people can find you in all the different places. That's a great recommendation. Now, here we go. Email marketing. Talk to us about the importance of having a newsletter.
Well, it's a way to stay connected with people because it's a reminder to people like, hey, here's what I recently published on the blog. It's a way to really get deep with them. And by that, like, how are people going to remember to go to my website? In an email, and it's like, oh, hey, there's Susan. I like that blog, and she seems like a fun person I'd like to ride with. And they'll open it up, and then I can tell them what's going on, and I can tell them things too that are maybe a little more private that I don't want to share on the website for all the world to see. Mm-hmm. So it's a great way to connect. Email it works. It's been around for a long time, and it's going to be around for a long time. I'm just going to keep emailing the people who've signed up. They've given me permission to connect and communicate with them, and I'm going to let them know what's going on. I'm going to tell them about my new book. So it's just a more direct way. You don't have middlemen, and it's like writing a letter. It's like writing a note to a friend. Here's what's going on. I think people enjoy I've had people respond like, I really always enjoy getting these updates and stuff. So
yeah, and I think you're talking about something really important here is you're building a relationship with the people who follow your blog via your email newsletter. So you're having a conversation, you're sharing things that are a little more personal. You're not just hitting them up every time you have a new blog post or a new book to sell. You're actually opening up a little bit and talking to these people like your friends. So you're sharing important, interesting things with them, not just throwing them a buy my book newsletter or read my newest post. You're taking time to have an intimate relationship with them. And what's so special about that is when people give you an email address, they trust you and they like what you do. They like you. They want to know about you. Because we do all receive a lot of spam. So take care with the gift of an email address and send interesting things to the people who like you, and you can reach them. If Facebook dissolved or Instagram went away or Twitter went away, you would have really no way to reach all those people who have been following you. And a really nicely cultivated email list, you can always reach these people through your blog and then through this email system to let them know what you're up to. I mean, do you have any comments on that? Because I think email is so important, but it has to be done in a certain way to be effective, right?
Yeah. And I subscribe to a lot of email newsletters because I want to see okay, do I like it? Why did I open that one? I look at subject lines, there's just frequency. I'm kind of a student of all the things. My list isn't as robust as some of the really big players out there, but I've thought about that number, and you've probably heard this too. I don't know which teacher of online business out there said this, but if you had all of those subscribers in a room and you were at a podium speaking to them, and I'd be really scared because I was like, that's a large crowd. It's not as vast as I would like for it to be, but it's, a good group. And yeah, so it is a privilege. And I just look at it like, what can I do that's going to help them have a better equestrian experience?
So what you cover is very useful for people, and you frame it in a new way inside your newsletter where you're sharing with your friends. Here's what's going on. Here's some things that are useful for you. Check it out. The thing about a fan base is that I heard the magic number is 1,000. If you have 1,000 engaged people who are interested in you, your brand, your book, what you're doing, that's all you need to be successful. I think there's a book out there called The Magic 1,000.
I think I've read that. I think it was a blog post or something. 1,000 fans or something.
Yeah, that was it. 1,000 true fans.
You should link to that actually in the show notes.
Yeah, and I will include that link in the show notes because we have this idea, and I think it's it's just the looking good thing of social media and doing the things that we do out in the internet realm is that we need millions of people to like our stuff to be successful. And that's just not true. If you are really good to the people that like what you're doing, you don't need huge numbers of followers. You just have to be engaged and good to them, and 1,000 will do. And then I like too, you're interesting because you test drive in different places. So you test drive topics for blog posts in social media. Your blog then sort of test drives different topics for potentially books. So you're doing a lot of testing in different places, and I'm sure it's not like it's just interesting to you, but that's sort of how you find your content is just like test driving things in different places. Is that about right?
Yeah. So for example, if I do intend to stick with fox hunting, which I want to, I kind of need to have a horse trailer. I don't have a horse trailer. I don't have a truck. I don't know anything about that. A dear sweet friend gave me a lesson on horse trailer driving in an empty parking lot. That was quite hilarious, but I couldn't back up so well. But so I wanted to kind of explore that. And so again, in that social media, I had questions in there like slant load versus straight load, gooseneck versus bumper pull. And people are very passionate about what they think about horse trailers. So I was able to do a blog post, and I think it was something to the effect of like 42 horse trailer shopping tips. And it was just things I never would have thought about regarding getting a horse trailer and the pros and cons of the various styles, the various brands. And then, oh yeah, the truck. Yeah, so a lot of it is I'm trying to figure something out for myself. So maybe I should write a little book about trailer shopping, which again, I always feel like with the grief book too, Strands of Hope, like, well, I'm not an expert, right? I've only lost one horse. I'm not a minister. I'm not a psychologist. But then it's like, well, there's a whole host of people out there too that we're kind of all trying to figure this out together. And the other thing, I'm a teacher, my day job, I've taught for 20 years. Educational research shows that newer learners are frequently more effective teachers than someone who's been doing it for a while, which is why, in a lot of modern day education settings, students are working in collaborative groups. So if, one kid doesn't understand how to do the math problem, yeah, the teacher can explain it, but probably a peer who gets it can explain it better. So that might be part of what is appealing about when I'm writing about kissing spine. Like, wow, I've heard of it. I had no idea what it was. I'm not an expert. I'm not a veterinarian, not a trainer, but this is what I'm learning about it, and I can share it with someone else.
I think you should write the horse trailer / truck book, because I think that would be a useful resource, because I like how you're talking, because there's a lot of like information out there, but it's like everywhere. I like what you're talking about, is bringing it all together in one place that makes sense, with all the considerations, written by an equestrian for equestrians, without an ulterior motive, like without trying to sell a horse trailer, right? Like really just bringing the information that we need to know, because I'm in the market for a new truck. So I would probably read that too, to go along with my 3-horse slant load step up gooseneck. And goosenecks are easier to back up than bumper pulls.
I have heard that.
What for you has been the best part of blogging? But then on the flip side of that, what has been like the hardest thing about blogging?
The best part of blogging, I believe, is just that it's opened doors for very unique experiences and relationships. So I've made friends with you, and we know each other in real life, not just on the screen. And I've met several other people who are some of my dearest, bestest friends right now that I would have never met without blogging. It's been an incredible resource in terms of, like, when I was dealing with trying to figure out why my horse kept having ulcers, or the kissing spine, like the comments you get from people, the responses from the emails that I send out. I learn a lot from my audience as well. So I'm smarter because of them. And also just opportunities working with, brands and events. And, there were several of us Los Angeles based horse blogger slash influencer types that got to go on a junket with Focus Films for the Mustang movie. And that was awesome. We got, put up at a very fancy hotel in Santa Barbara.
How
And if you've
cool.
never been to Santa Barbara, like, it is amazing. So that was just a really neat thing. And obviously the writing. So it's established me as a credible force in the equestrian realm.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't have a journalism background. I mean, I took classes, a few here and there in college. I'm a political science major. Yeah, I think and then obviously with the blogging too, the more you blog, the more you write, the better of a writer you become.
Mm-hmm.
So I could go on, but we have a limited time for this podcast. But yeah, so blogging, it's been fantastic.
And then the hardest part?
The tech. And also, I would say sometimes I write a blog post and I feel like, I just hit a home run. This is amazing. Everyone needs to read this. It's going to revolutionize their equestrian life. And then crickets. One blog post I had, there were these cup holders on the arena, the outdoor. Well, I guess we only have outdoor arenas here in California, but the fence line, they made these little cup holders. So you could put your water bottle in there when you're riding around. I mean, it's perfect.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I took pictures of it, and that blog post got so many comments, and it was all this love, and it's just a picture of a stupid arena fence. And then, I've poured my heart into these other things, and I'm sure my mom's read them, but it's a funny thing.
Yeah, it is interesting the things that you think often people will react to, they don't. And then these other things really, really take off. It's just, it's very interesting. But it's also another way to get to know your readers and what they're looking for. And, everything is a test. That's kind of how I think of it. And your mom is wonderful, by the way. She's so sweet. I was so happy to meet her at the American Horse Publications seminars. And then, she follows me on social media. She's so sweet. But that brings up an interesting question. You have a full-time job, you have a horse, you write books. Those are all very time-consuming other duties. How do you handle the pressure of constantly having to come up with content for your blog, but then have to manage social media in addition to that? How do you figure that out? Do you have time set aside? Do you limit yourself when you're in social?
Yeah, I'm a very piecemeal kind of person. I've always been that way. I can, which is probably why I have multiple projects. I don't know. I have some friends that they will sit down and do a thing and just hang in there, not eat, not come up for air, stay up all night, get it done. That's never been me. So I'm like a plotter. I just keep plodding along bit by bit. I just am good at finding pockets of time. I know you're very disciplined with the routine. I wish I had that. But,
it takes a lot to get there. Yeah.
I never struggle. I have so many ideas for blog posts, but I won't be able to to live long enough to act on them all. So the ideas part is never a problem for me. It's the sitting down and executing. This third book, if it's okay, I'll tell you a little bit about it.
Yeah, please tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so it's called Unbridled Creativity, 101 Writing Prompts for the Horse Lover.
Oh my gosh.
Because I have books, kind of creative journals and stuff. And I just thought it would be really fun to have horsey themes to write on. And, it's, they could maybe be the basis for blog posts, but I don't teach English anymore. I teach history, but I taught English for years. And so I kind of know how to create prompts that will elicit, a good response. And so I just thought of different types of writing that these are the genres that I've taught. You teach persuasion, you teach narrative, you teach all these different things. And maybe it would be a resource for homeschool moms that have kids who love horses. Maybe it's just for people who want to, write and have a creative outlet. I'm connecting it into my blog because, again, educational research, the way people learn how to be better writers is by seeing samples, seeing models. We call these mentor texts.
Mm.
So I took some of the prompts, and I have a page on my website where if someone wasn't really sure how to get going on a prompt, they could see the sample that I did and give them that idea.
Oh, that's cool. That's a great idea. See, this is another example of how the blog can connect to the book, but the book can connect to the blog. And like, this has been such a cool conversation because the blog really connects. It's like the center of the spokes all the way around. Everything kind of leads back to it, but then leads back out to the bigger circle and produces all of this content and possibilities for you. You are really great at collaborating and working with other authors specifically. Like you and I have worked together on kind of thinking through a newsletter swap where we worked with a lot of other authors, and it was very successful during the time of COVID. We all discounted our books, and sort of your brainchild. So you've done a lot of collaborations. Talk about the value of collaborating with other influencers, bloggers, authors, and how that can benefit your blog.
Well, I think it's important to not think of other people as competition.
I agree.
Yeah, because like there, in terms of books, right? If someone's going to read a horse book, like one author could not crank out enough horse books to satisfy. Like you're into romance, I'm into more memoir, nonfiction stuff. So there's like something for everyone. I do think it's important to connect with people. I did this early on when I was blogging, and I reached out to, I know you've had her on your show, Raquel from Horse and Wheels.
I love her. Yes.
Yeah, and she's actually one of the people I mentioned earlier. Like I've become friends with her in real life. So I reached out early on to connect with Raquel, and I thought, I'm a teacher. I've tutored people. Like I don't know her. I didn't think it was appropriate for me to be like, hey, can you help me, with my blogging? So I just proposed to her. I was like, how about I can hire you to kind of like tutor me a little bit? And I told her what my rate was that I received as a tutor, and she was cool with that. And so that is how we initially got to know each other. She helped me a lot. And then, I started figuring some things out. And so I think it's important to reach out to people. I think it's important. I've heard someone, and I don't remember who now, but someone in kind of the blogging space say, like, you want to connect with people who are further along in the journey than you, and people who are like starting out more so. And, because you can all help each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I reached out to you to help me navigate publishing, and you recommended a book, and we spent some time on the phone. I really appreciate that.
Oh, I was happy to help.
Yeah, so there you have it.
Collaboration is very cool, and I love what you said about others not being your competition, because we when we lift each other up, we all are lifted up, right? And I think there was something that said, like, we could all be given the exact same story prompt at the exact same time, and every single one of us will write a completely different story because it's from our brains, right? So no matter what, all our stories are different. They just happen to have horses at the center. So when we work together, so much is possible. And I like how you talked about, reaching out to people that you admire, but I think working in collaboration requires getting to know what someone's up to, like reading their blog, listening to their podcast, perhaps, checking out a little bit about who they are, and then, maybe start following them on social media, and then, talk to them a little bit on their comments, and like get to know the person, and, warm up to each other and get to know each other, open up that dialogue, but don't just reach out and expect something. I think that's how collaboration is most powerful, is when you're getting to know each other rather than just expecting something. It's like support each other? How do we help each other out? It's always easier when you've established kind of a relationship with someone before just reaching out and having an ask. Like when you reached out to Raquel, you didn't just expect that she would help you. You offered to pay for her time so you could learn from her, and then that established a relationship between the two of you. And I think that was a really good way to approach that. So do you have any thoughts on like how to cultivate a relationship with someone that you'd like to learn from?
Yeah, I guess. I agree with everything you said in terms of like getting to know what people are about in that. So like an example of what not to do.
I'm sure you get
like
a lot of
okay,
pitches.
so Carly writes fiction. She's very passionate about, I don't know, equestrian romance. Do you call it cowboy romance or does that mean real steamy?
Well, I call it equestrian romance because there's an element of actually knowing what's going on with the horses. Yes, I have a good-looking cowboy, but cowboy romance is a little bit Fabio, a little bit more hot than mine tend to go. So I sort of try to stay on the equestrian romance.
I appreciate that about you because, but anyway, so, and, I'm more nonfiction, memoir type thing. So, I've had people reach out to me and they want to send me their novel or something. It's like, I'm not really a novel, like people I know that I'm in relationship, like, yes, I will support and read and what have you. So I think it is important to kind of follow along to know what, because equestrian is broad, but like within that, there's certain things they're passionate about. I had a shop that was really big into like Western wear kind of stuff. And I just thought like, I love it. It's cool. It's not really my style. So that's there would not be a good fit with that. If you're trying to connect, just connect because there's genuinely something there. Like if you were at a party in real life, if there weren't COVID, like would you be in a corner chatting with that person and just like in a really deep conversation?
Yeah, exactly. And and it's your responsibility to do a little research before you reach out to people. Is this a good fit? Does this make sense for them? Not just for yourself, but for them.
Right.
Like I get strange pitches all the time from like pesticide fly spray companies and things like that. And I'm like, have you even looked at my website?
Oh, yeah, I get one. I just got one. Like I think because the name Saddle is in my site, that they think I'm a tack shop. And it's like an overseas place. We want to provide you with the best riding gloves. And we want to provide you with the best. And I'm like, I don't want to sell riding gloves. But
Yeah. It's just, get to know who you were reaching out to and start a relationship and, how can you help them? Not just how can they help you? I think that's so important. So, we've covered a lot of ground. What would your advice be for someone who has started a blog but hasn't really gotten any momentum going? What are some of the consistency rhythms that you use in your blogging strategy?
okay, well, what I do won't work for everyone, and it might not even be the best practice for me. I feel like that is something I experiment with. Right now, at this phase, I publish one blog post per week, and I usually try to do that on a Wednesday, but sometimes not. And my newsletter goes out every other Friday, and try to be very consistent with both of those. And as far as social media, I try to post once a day for authors. If our strength is in writing words, not necessarily in the visual communication, I think Instagram can be a challenge because I would say don't post if you're going to post something that's not a great image. Then as far as Facebook, I try to do once a day. Sometimes I'll get very ambitious and do twice a day on my Saddle Seeks Horse Facebook page. The thing is, people can share. The blog posts I've had that have gone viral because of Facebook, not because of Instagram, not because of Pinterest. So I would say that Facebook is still important. And I think it's, I'm middle-aged. I think that demographic is still hanging out there.
Now, for authors that are uncertain about why they should have a blog. Can you, I mean, I think you've given us a lot of reasons why a blog supports an author career, but what advice would you give to an author that has access to a blog or is thinking about starting a blog? What would you say to them about the practice of blogging that they should know?
You just got to try it. Just do it. It's not easy. I mean, it is easy and it's not easy because if you're already a writer, you know how to write. Blog writing is a different beast than writing a novel, though. So, like, you're writing, if you write really long, flowery paragraphs, and that might not translate so well to a blog. But like, it could be, if you already have people who love your books and all that, and you want to, have additional characters or somehow, getting them come into your site, there's a lot of things. I am probably not the person to talk to about it for someone who's deep into the fiction world. But I do think it's important to have, like we said, the social medias can go away. They can be fickle with who they're showing your information to. So I think having a website, having the email newsletter is really important. I'm not a techie person. If I can navigate having a self-hosted WordPress site, you can too. Once you kind of do it a few times, then it starts to go faster, and then you kind of develop a rhythm, and it gets easier.
Yeah, and I love that you said educate yourself and learn how to use your platform and update it and work with it yourself, because a lot of people hire designers to build websites, and then every time they want to make an adjustment or change something, they have to go back and pay that person an hourly rate to make updates to their website. So when you have a website that hosts your blog, you want to be able to work with it and update it yourself, because not only do you understand it, but it'll save you money in the long run. Is that a right assessment, Susan?
Oh yeah. I've never had someone do a website, but I've heard thousands and thousands of dollars for a website, or just buy a pretty theme. And I love my theme, Restored 316, and there's an affiliate link on my blog if you like it. But the particular theme I'm using was, they designed it for bloggers. So they optimized it for email newsletter sign up. So it was like, oh, they said this is the one they designed for bloggers, I'm going to go with it. And so I did that. And yeah.
And I'm sure it modifies itself via whether it's on a laptop, or on a desktop or a mobile phone, because you need to have mobile compatibility nowadays, because most people are reading on their phones. So that's an important thing when you're picking out your website theme, right? Is to make sure it's compatible for both desktop and mobile. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And does that have a certain term, or it's just called mobile compatible, right?
I'm trying to remember. There is a term for that, and now I can't think of what it is.
I think it's close. Susan, we have talked about so much today, and you have opened up quite a bit of insight into blogging and some of the best practices and things to look for. I mean, this probably could be a 5-part series to get even more in there, but you've shared a lot of information. And listeners, go look at what Susan is doing with her blog and how she's interacting on social media and how she uses it to reach her readers, because she's doing an incredible job of working with all this and using it as a spoke to reach different areas and send people back to her website and blog. So you've already talked about what is coming next. You have a third book, the workbook for creatives, equestrian creatives. What else are you curious about? Where are you heading? Any new projects that are kind of bubbling up in your mind?
Since we were talking, now I'm thinking maybe I should write that horse trailer book. So, which again, going back to why you need to collaborate with people, because you get ideas from fellow creatives, authors, etc. So I appreciate this time, Carly. It's fun. I want to continue to get better at photography. Last year for Small Business Saturday, I bought a very nice Nikon camera, touted to be the perfect starter camera for people that only use their cell phones. So I need to just practice with it more.
Susan, I have so enjoyed having you on the show today. Would you let listeners know where they can find out more about you, what you blog, where your books are, and all the good places where they can reach you?
I would love to invite them. Okay, so my blog is kind of my main hub. It's saddleseekshorse.com. So, just spell the word saddle, seeks, like you're looking for something, horse.com. And I would also love to have them join my email newsletter list. And, even if they're not a huge fan of off-track thoroughbreds and memoir, they could still join it just to kind of get the feel for the rhythm that I'm in with connecting with my audience. So, and there are on my site, Saddle Seeks Horse, there's multiple places that you can opt in to my email newsletter list. The books, I just started selling them on my site.
Hey.
And they're actually a little cheaper than that other place. They're available also on Amazon. And Instagram, I'm active on that one. Saddle Seeks Horse is my handle. And then Facebook also, I would love to have more Facebook likes and follows. And it's Saddle Seeks Horse on Facebook. And follow me on Pinterest if you're a Pinterest person. That would be great. And the weird thing, Pinterest wouldn't let me do the whole name. So it's like Saddle Seeks Horse, but there's no E in saddle. I like helping, that's been my life's work for the last 20 years, helping people learn.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm happy to extend that if there's fellow authors that need a little boost in the realm of getting started with blogging, etc.
That is so generous of you to say, Susan, and you have always been someone who reaches out and helps and shares information openly, and thank you for doing that. I love our little equestrian author community and blogger community and how we all kind of support each other and lift each other up, and a lot of us are women, which makes me really happy, and thank you for your contributions to our community. I will make sure to link to all the places where listeners can find you in your books, in your blog, in the show notes. I wish you so much continued success.
Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun, Carly.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. I hope you enjoy these Q&A sessions with wonderful equine authors who love all things horses and riding, just like me. Visit my website, carlykadecreative.com, where you can read the show notes, and make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you so much for your support. Want a free guide to secrets of horsebook authors? Gallop over to carlykadecreative.com/wisdom to have author advice delivered instantly to your inbox. If you are an author who writes about horses and would like to be spotlighted, please let me know. Visit my contact page at carlykadecreative.com to fill out a request. I'd be happy to have you on the show too. Thank you for tuning in to the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. See you next time. I'm your host, Carly Kade. Creative writing makes my spurs jingle.